Did you know that hedgehogs are actually great swimmers? Are you kidding me? There are still nights where I wake up in a cold sweat from extremely vivid Sonic 2 flashbacks where I'm trying to get Sonic out of the water while the intense drowning music is blaring at me. And now I find out that Sonic could have used his speedy little legs to just swim to the surface. I guess Sega was right when they said Genesis does what Nintendo don't, and that's causing lasting childhood trauma. Good job, Sega. But since I didn't get my first Nintendo console until the 64, I got to spend a lot of quality time with Sonic, Tails, and when the rental store had that stacked cartridge monstrosity, Knuckles. The 90s was a golden age for Sonic, before he started turning into a werehog and competing in the Olympics. But no matter the era, Sonic games have always prioritized one thing: speed. And Sonic Generations does it the best. Watching the blue blur boost across your screen at Mach 1, knocking enemies away with the sheer force of his speed, made him feel unstoppable. Until I ran into a wall and stopped on a dime. I guess that answers the question of who would win between an unstoppable force and an immovable object. Wall 1, Sonic 0. But since this game got me thinking about physics, I decided to chase that feeling and dive a little deeper into Sonic's relationship with the concept of inertia. But probably not in the way you think. This is what I learned playing Sonic Generations. Big disclaimer here, I am not, nor will I ever be, a physicist. So my upcoming explanation of inertia is gonna be fairly basic. But that's all we need to have a good time. Inertia is the resistance to a change in motion. Some of you have probably heard it described by the phrase, an object in motion stays in motion, and an object at rest stays at rest. This essentially means that an object continues to do what it's already doing. For example, let's imagine for a second our object, Sonic, starts running. Since he's already in motion, inertia would dictate that he keeps moving, and if he wants to stop moving, he won't be able to do it instantly because his inertia will continue to carry him forward. That's why Sonic does his little slide when he tries to stop while moving fast. On the other hand, if Sonic isn't moving, which if that's the case you're playing Sonic wrong, then he will just sit there, shooting you a death stare and impatiently tapping his foot. Because the law of inertia keeps him from suddenly starting to move when he's at rest, as it does with all objects. Now, there's more to the phrase an object in motion stays in motion and an object at rest stays at rest. The often excluded last line of that phrase is, unless acted upon by an outside force. Sonic forces, perhaps? Boo! And that's what we as the player become when Sonic is at rest. An outside force that can get him moving. The beauty of an outside force is that it can overcome an object's inertia and change its behavior, which is a critical piece of information to understand as we move forward. The concept of inertia is much more complex than I've spelled out here, but you should know enough now to be dangerous. And with my super simple scientific explanation of how inertia is the resistance to a change in motion out of the way, I want to change our motion and start talking about inertia in a more metaphorical sense by applying it to you, personally. We're still going to talk about your personal inertia as a resistance to a change in motion, but more about a potential lack of movement or resistance to change in certain aspects of your life. In life, it's easy to stay at rest. You have a routine and get into a groove, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but in some cases that groove is actually more of a rut. It could be staying at a job that isn't fulfilling, or continuing bad diet and exercise habits, but at the end of the day, we can become complacent and lose our drive to overcome our own inertia. Not to mention that if you've been at rest for a decent amount of time, it's really hard to change it, which we can actually tie directly to the physics version of inertia, because the greater the mass of an object, the greater the resistance to change. Take a look at this boss battle with the Death Egg robot. There is clearly a lot of mass in Dr. Eggman's robot, and as you can see, Sonic can't move it. He literally bounces off it, because the significant amount of mass the robot has greatly increases its resistance to a change in motion by an outside force, aka Sonic. So if you've been at rest for a while in areas of your own life, your inertia may feel as massive as the Death Egg robot, and it's gonna take a strong force to overcome it. In the case of your personal inertia, outside forces are absolutely a component to changing it. Maybe it's a group of close friends telling you that you need to step it up, or a health issue getting to a point where you can no longer ignore it. But unlike normal inertia, you're not just an object. You have a will of your own. So there's a bit more ownership in overcoming your personal inertia, which means you shouldn't rely solely on external forces to change it. One of the ways that Sonic shows us how we can overcome our personal inertia is by building momentum. Sonic doesn't just go from 0 to 100 in game, he has to progressively build up his speed and momentum to go fast. The same thing goes for you if you're trying to overcome your resting personal inertia. If you haven't been exercising, don't try to run a half marathon tomorrow. Build momentum towards that by walking around the block a few times. If you dislike your job, don't walk into the office tomorrow and submit your 2 weeks notice. Start brainstorming what you'd like to have in a job that would make you feel more satisfied. That's how you start changing your personal inertia, by taking specific, manageable actions to build enough momentum to get you moving faster. And once you're in motion, you're gonna be harder to stop, which should help propel you through some of the barriers you may encounter as you try to accomplish your goals. Because remember, an object in motion stays in motion. You just need to take that first step. So let me be the first outside force to apply some pressure on your resting personal inertia. It probably won't be enough to move it completely, but I hope this video can be your first step towards building the momentum you need to overcome your inertia. Just make sure you live and learn while you're doing it. And that's it. To all the physicists out there, please forgive any scientific inaccuracies. But if you have other examples of how Sonic illustrates the concept of inertia better, feel free to leave them down in the comments. If you liked what you saw today, I'd love for you to subscribe and come back for the next one. Until then, see you around.